Well, hello everyone. It's 12:30 as promised, and it's going to be a lot of information. I'm going to try and be as quick as I possibly can. But firstly, thank you for attending. We have, like I said, a good number of people. It seems like we have people from all around the world joining as well, which is nice. Obviously, my focus is on Europe, primarily. But thank you very much for joining this Lunch and Learn session, which is all about the Reality Capture software updates for March and April 2021. Firstly, for those of you who don't know me, just going to introduce myself. My name is Paul Burrows. You might have seen me on LinkedIn or on various social media. I'm the Scanning Solutions Manager in Europe, and basically running or working in a business development role for solution sales, and primarily again focused around driving adoption of our HDS, or our laser scanning reality capture software portfolio. I've been with the business 14 years, and yeah, really this is just a session. This isn't a sales pitch. This isn't trying to get you to buy something. This is to give you updates and information in a nice, cohesive form, and allow you to provide some feedback as well. So we will have the opportunity to ask some questions as well during the session. So here's the agenda. We're going to look at the hardware and firmware updates initially. Then we're going to look at Cyclone Field 360 updates. We'll briefly touch on the new BLK2GO Live app. Then this is where the meat of the presentation is really Cyclone Register 360 2021. Talking about the new TruView family of products. So there's some changes there which you need to be aware of. Then we'll look at CloudWorx updates, which I know a lot of people are using in terms of consuming the data. Then we have some bonus items. I always like to have sort of one more thing, in this instance, two more things, but yeah, some bonus items to discuss with some follow-up, and then obviously we'll have a summary and a close at the end of the session also. So if you have any questions, feel free. There is actually a little box that you can ask within the GoToWebinar tool. So feel free to ask some questions. I am actually hosting this by myself today, so I'm not going to be able to answer questions as we go along, but we can certainly review some of the questions at the end. Alternatively, I'll provide my contact information at the end as well, so you can reach out to me via email or phone or WhatsApp, whatever, just if you have got any other questions. But feel free to ask those, okay? And if you need any help, do let me know. So firmware updates Q1 2021. So the first one, which you probably are aware of, is the integration of the P series into the Cyclone Field 360 workflow. So this allows us to use the Cyclone Field 360 app for all the scanners, whether that's the RTC360, the BLK360, or the P series. And that's all P series scanners. So that's P15, P16, P20, 30, 40, 50. All of the scanners are able to work with Cyclone Field 360 in that wireless communication mode. You can see the point cloud in real time. You can inspect the data and double check the data. You can annotate the data by adding geotags, which obviously then follow through downstream throughout the entirety of your project to be visible in Reg 360, in TruView, in your Cyclone Enterprise projects. You can obviously pre-register that data as well using the P series. You can publish to TruView Cloud if you want. If you've got a TruView Cloud subscription, you have the ability to do that directly from the app as well. And of course, all of the data, when you've done your registrations and your alignments, you can sync that back to the data. So when you download your project into Reg 360, you're ready to start working with that as quickly as possible. So just as a quick example, here's your setup. Here's your project on Field 360. And you will just start the scan. Now, what's quite nice is obviously we've replicated some of the functionality within the menu of the P series. So obviously you can choose the range, the sensitivity, the resolution, the image resolution, all those kind of settings that you would have access to ordinarily using the interface. And then we scan, and this is where we then see our lightweight preview object in 2D or 3D come into the view. And then we move to our second position. Capture the data much like you would do with the RTC360 or the BLK360. Obviously, the P series doesn't have the viz technology of the RTC360, so you would obviously need to manually align that. But we have the pre-align function where you can actually automatically bring those together, and then you can tweak that alignment using the visual alignment tools like you would ordinarily in Field 360 as well. So I think that's a really nice feature, and then you end up with the beginnings of your bundle. Now, there's some important things to know about this implementation. The first thing is that because we want to run this really, really quickly, and because the images on the P series are very, very big, you know, especially if you've taken HDR imagery, we only transfer the grayscale or the rainbow, what we call lightweight preview objects. So we don't see the color like we would do with the RTC360. Target scans can be triggered from the onboard user interface, but obviously you can also use what we call target tagging. I'll talk about that in a bit, where we can actually mark the position of targets to allow you to give a hint for extraction in Reg 360. If you want to do partial scans or child scans, you can actually do that from the scanner. So if you've got, you know, an area in the distance where you want to do ultra high resolution on the P50, for example, but we don't generate what we call the lightweight preview objects for those, but they are stored within the scanner. Survey type setups, you can do that directly on board the instrument. So if you're going to do a traverse or a resection or whatever, they are kept fixed, so they're not moved manually or during the linking process on Field 360. So that will come in as, you know, almost like a separate bundle within Register 360. The scanner has to be prepared once, so that's either on the first connection or using the data copy tool. That should take a maximum of 20 minutes to do that setup. If it's taken any longer or it hangs for any reason, then obviously, you know, you can restart that process. But be sure to make sure that you use all the latest versions of firmware, Cyclone and Register 360 to support that. Okay, so now moving on to the RTC360 firmware. This firmware version 4.0, I think you'll be really, really interested to install or excited to install. Certainly because of the first one, which is the 3D scan data size reduction. So firstly, you can see here the massive reduction in terms of scan data size, and this is without the loss of any quality of the 3D data. And you can see over the years we've had the various iterations, firmware 1.5, 2, and now 4. We can get considerably more scans on a 256 gigabyte stick, but it also means that the data is faster to download, faster to process, and in conjunction with the next slide, which is image data size reduction, we now have much smaller raw data projects that we're able to then to import into Cyclone or Register 360. So you can see here, typically, you know, I normally scan on medium resolution, so 6 mil at 10 meters. We're now at 408 megabytes for a scan plus images for one setup, and that's full HDR imagery. You know, it's a massive step forward, and it brings us in line, if not smaller than most of the other manufacturers out there. And considering we are capturing this, you know, 5K 5 bracket HDR imagery as well for every single setup, if we've chosen to take color, that's even more dramatic. So here's version 3.0. There's a tone mapped image. And just to show you that there's no loss in quality because of the reduction. I know you can't really see the full resolution in a PowerPoint presentation, unfortunately, but you can see here a version 4 tone mapped panoramic image, and the image quality is really, really nice. What we've also done, in addition to reducing the image and the scan data sizes, we've added this new functionality called adaptive resolution. Now, what this means is you're able to collect, when you collect a low resolution scan, for example, you would also then collect lower resolution imagery to match up with the resolution of the scan. And that ultimately means you can see now, if we do use the adaptive with a low resolution, for a scan and an image setup, you're looking at 92 megabytes, which is a really, really small file. Even 373 for a medium is small. There's no change with high, because we're high, we match to the highest resolution to give you that 5K panorama. But what that means is we can get a much larger number of scans and imagery directly on the RTC360 removable media, the 256 gigabyte stick that you can see here. So I mean, that to me, low resolution, 2,700, over 2,700 low resolution scan positions with imagery using the adaptive setup. I mean, that's absolutely incredible. So hopefully you're going to make use of that functionality, and I can see how a lot of people that is going to benefit their day-to-day operations, not least with the number of USB sticks that they would need to have for their RTC360 as well. So in terms of what that looks like, you can see here's just an example of the high, medium, low resolution settings. Obviously, you're going to get more pixelization as you move down towards the low resolution scan. So here's an example here. That's the high resolution, the medium resolution, and the low resolution, all from the same setup. Now, on closer inspection, you'd be able to obviously see the real true differences between those three images. but a lot of the time, maybe you don't need the highest resolution, and the adaptive resolution on the imagery, maybe that isn't the prime concern of the project. So we've also got some functions which we'll talk about later, so you can import the images after import now and just create a registration based on the scan data and then re-import the color at a later stage if you want to as well. But I think that people make good use of the adaptive resolution. So that's wrapping up in summary what we've added in version 4.0. Then we have Cyclone Field 360 update. So I don't know whether you know the tagline for Field 360, but it's view, check, add. So we view the data, we verify it, we look at it, and we can obviously add in terms of geotags and information directly into the project. So we've talked about all the P-series support and RTC360 and BLK360 support, but other features that we've included are multitasking, target tagging, and also some measuring capability. So multitasking. This is in iOS primarily, but now we can have Field 360 on one side and another application running on the other side simultaneously. I was surprised actually how many people were interested to have this functionality, because I've only ever been immersed in Field 360 when using it. But obviously it allows you to do what you can see here: quickly check out a map, maybe gather an image from Google or Safari, and then you can use that as a geotag directly within Field 360. So there's lots of scope for usage there. This is one of my favorite functions that we've added, is the ability to tag targets. So effectively you create a geotag for a black and white target. So we've added this new functionality just here. So you can just see, you can say I want to tag a target, you tag the approximate position, and then it will use that hint within Register 360 to derive the center of the target. But you can also upload a control file to Cyclone Field 360 as well. So we'll actually pull that through into the project, into Reg 360. So theoretically, you could scan, register in the field, or pre-register in the field, add your target hints or your target tags, import the control file, and then just drag and drop that whole project into Reg 360, apply it to control, and you've got a finished project. Theoretically, that's entirely up to you to make sure you check the data. But that, to me, is a really, really important step forward. And also, almost to there's just so much scope for speeding up your workflows using the target tagging functionality, especially if you've got some dead time to be able to put those target tags in. The other one is measurement components. So you can now do these. You can see the measurement components when you click directly within Field 360. You've got this show components option. But what you should also know is if you can turn that off, but if you select any measurement, you will automatically always see the components of that measurement. But I think that's really nice. Again, a function I don't really use very often, but actually we see more and more people just getting rough dimensions straight out of Field 360. Next, just jumping onto the BLK2GO Live app. So this is for the BLK2GO handheld device. And this is just a very, very brief update, but effectively we have now released a version for Android. So you can see the theme here. I'm starting talking about the field and the data capture side of the process, and this is obviously part of that. But BLK2GO Live for Android. So this is now live, and the feature set is very much like BLK2GO Live app when we released the iOS app in 2020. And that is available. The feedback so far has been very, very positive for people I know who've been using it. And as we know, there's a lot of surveyors out there using Android, a lot of people using Android. So it is a very, very useful addition. And also we have now within the iOS version, I don't know whether we've got this actually included in the Android version yet, is the best practices. So there's actually a little guide directly within the BLK2GO Live app, which will tell you how to collect data and how best to use the BLK2GO to get the best results. Previously we were obviously as salespeople and sales teams delivering documents and videos to help people and guide people. But ultimately, if you follow the very, very simple steps, you get some really nice results from the BLK2GO, especially with the new Grand Slam algorithm, which has been released and refined, utilizing fully these Viz cameras that are on the instrument. So it's similar tracking in the field that we have with the RTC360. So they're the updates to the field aspect of our portfolio. Right, now moving on to Register 360. And I said this was going to be the meat of the presentation. Obviously, bearing in mind that I know some of you guys are obviously genuinely using a lunchtime to watch this, and others of you are in other parts of the world at different times of the day. But yeah, I want to really drill down onto this aspect because we've put a lot of work into this release of Reg 360, and I think you'll see that from the sheer number of features that we've added into this release. There's still obviously more we want to release. There's still stuff that we want to refine and change, and it's always a process of innovation and refinement. But hopefully you'll see that we've done an awful lot with this release. The first one is the support for 2000 setup. So we never really had a hard limit with Reg 360. I had users who were already pushing the boundaries with very, very powerful machines. We had some guys out in the Middle East who were doing sort of 1500 setups on jobs, but typically anything over sort of maybe 500 or 600 setups, most of the customers were typically using Cyclone register, which is still a current solution, but it's maybe it is more capable, or was more capable of handling lots and lots of setups. So now we have this 2000 setup support within Reg 360. So you've got a little short video here now just showing one of these projects that was collected. I think this is out in the US, and you can see how we're able to handle projects of that size and scope now. So again, we can just jump down to any of those individual scan positions, but actually the rendering on a 2000 setup job, I'm very, very impressed with. This is all obviously underpinned by our Jetstream point cloud streaming technology. So you would expect it to be good, but that's the size of project that we're now able to handle using Reg 360. So hopefully some of you can make use of that. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was face and license plate detection in our imagery. So we actually have two options. We have a manual blur and an auto blur. So auto blur is part of Publisher Pro. So what you can see here is we've got the license plates before and after. So that using the auto blur that will actually find those within the scene and automatically blur that image, and it will also blur the image associated with the point cloud as well. So you wouldn't be able to read that if you were to open up the colorized point cloud, for example. You can also see how we've applied the face and license plate detection to these people here. So this is actually a couple of the guys from the US. This is Mike Harvey and Ryan, just collecting some data. We've got the before and after again using the auto blur, and at any point in time we can revert to the original images. So I've just done a short video here. I posted this up on social recently, so apologies if you've already seen it, but this is just where we've got an item within an image that we potentially want to blur, but not a faceplate and not a face. Maybe there's something else. So we can just go into the image. So we say edit image blur. It opens up the panorama for the associated scan position that we're in. Then we can zoom into the area that we want to blur. And then we've got some tools so we can actually change the size of the blur tool. It's sort of basic version of Photoshop essentially. And then once you've got the size that you're happy with, you just use the left and right mouse buttons at the same time, and then you can blur over the area in question. And once you're happy, you can then save that. And as I said, that will save the image, and it will also save your point cloud behind will obviously also be colorized accordingly. But at any point in time, you can open up that image again, and you can actually revert to the original image if you wanted to. Okay, so that's the image blurring functionalities. Then we've got some really nice advanced UCS creation tools. So that was something that before it was, I'll be open and honest, it was relatively weak in Reg 360 previously. So we've now added the capability to set a UCS by corner or plane or faces, and we'll look at that now. There's a quick video, but this is just a really nice way of setting a UCS. We can obviously put in a reference point if we wanted to, a known point. So this video just highlights that. So what you see, firstly, we just go to the toolbar at the top and say create advanced UCS. And this invokes the menu, and then we can choose how we want to do it from pick, plane, or corner. So in this instance, we're just going to use corner. So you can just pick on any corner, and it will analyze the surface accordingly, and then it will allow you. What's really nice after that is you can actually specify the direction of the X and Y axis by clicking on these faces. So you can see here we can set Y or set X by the plane. So we can just click on those, and if we click twice, it will invert the selection. And once we're happy, we say create. And if we now go back to the sitemap view for that particular project and open up this right-hand menu, you'll see you've got the second UCS that we've just created, and obviously the reference point at 000. So a nice simple tool. I'm sure you guys will have far more uses for that than myself, but certainly that is the first iteration, and I'm sure we'll see some more refinement, but I'm very happy with what we've done in this release with that. Then we have the ability to set level or set the Z-axis very, very quickly. So for example, you could do this for an individual setup, or you can do this for a walk with the BLK2GO. So the tool's really, really simple. All you do is, here's your scan data. Obviously, if you've got some limit boxes, just to make your selection a little bit easier, you can. And all you do is you then use the set level tool, which is on the top menu bar, and pick on an area. So if we just, in a second, you'll see we'll pick that tool on the top menu bar. And we click a point on the area, on the ground that we want to specify as level. Now this is great, basketball court, fantastic. And then you can see that's now found the plane, and that plane that we have defined will be used to set the up direction. So we just say set level, and that now is done for that setup. So I guess you can view that from the right hand side. You can see we've got a perfectly level data set. So that's a really nice feature. We've also got some really cool updates regarding georeferencing. Firstly, we can now apply control to a single setup or BLK2GO walk. That wasn't possible before. We now support multiple control files, so you don't have to bundle that all up together before importing it. You can bring in multiple control files, and that's absolutely fine. We also now have the ability to align a bundle to control without labels in a bundle, so matching with the geometry of the target. So this is something we've done in Cyclone Register for 20 years or so, but it's something that was missing from Reg 360, so that has now been added. So this is the example of two control files in one project. Another nice thing that we've done is the ability to snap to control in the sitemap view. So if you bring in you've got your control and your scan data, you can just drag that. You can just drag the scan data, and it will snap onto the control information. That is actually an option within the menu system. You can see just here it says snap bundles to apply control, but I've tested it in this data set that you can see here on the screen, and it works really, really well. Hopefully you guys will make use of that. In terms of UI and UX, we now have, this was always an issue with a lot of people with big projects, we now have the ability to show and hide individual setups. That's really cool. I've already tested that on a few jobs, and that works great. And we can also then collapse the whole bundle, or collapse everything now much quicker than we were able to before. So for large projects, it's much easier to manage. Again, another theme that you'll see throughout this presentation is improved measurements. So the ability to measure angles, the ability to measure areas. Currently, the measure area is just a square area. We're not doing anything in terms of polygons or sphere areas. I'm sure that will come with time, but again, it's a nice feature to have. You very quickly want that information, especially in plan view for a nice square building. We can very quickly just pick top left, top bottom right hand corner and get a quick area measurement for that space, without having to revert to CAD, for example. So definitely a useful feature. Something else that people have been asking for is the ability to import LGS data back into Reg 360, so we can now do that, and it will now understand the scan positions and the image information embedded within that LGS file. So previously, if you were to re-import an LGS into Cyclone Core, you'd actually lose all of that kind of information, just end up with a colorized point cloud. So that now fully understands the construct of the LGS file. You can then re-export that. You can add LGS data into an existing project. But yeah, it really does add some scope to what you can do with that LGS file. And as I said, it will understand the image setup information. It will bring that back through as panoramas into Register 360 as well. Right, so this is where it gets really nice as well. So import export features. We now have the ability to import images after the fact if we wanted to. So I know that some people are really keen to get registering and working with the data, but maybe they've collected high resolution with high resolution imagery as well, not using the adaptive setting on the lower resolutions. So we can now turn that off, so we don't import the images, and then we can re-import those images at a later stage if we want to. Now that means we can import the images from the raw project, or we can import them from multiple data sources at a later stage if we want to. Now this is just, for me, it's just a way of getting into the work as quick as possible, getting the point cloud registered and checked, But if you're bringing this data in dead time anyway, maybe it's not an issue for you. And certainly now with the smaller file sizes and the adaptive settings, again, maybe not useful for you, but certainly something that we've been asked for consistently since the release of Reg 360. So we did it, we added it, and I hope you like it. Now this is a fantastic step forward as well, the ability to decimate our point clouds at the point of export. So you can see if you go to the publish stage of a Reg 360 project, you can now click decimate and it will pop up with this little window, and it allows you to either subsample by a factor, or you can reduce the entire point cloud depending on the output that you are pushing from the solution. So for example, I typically push out an LGS file, so maybe I want to reduce the resolution accordingly. This has been asked for a lot because we scan perhaps more than we need, so we get really good registrations, and then we can strip out some of that to make the file lighter for consumption downstream or sharing with people. So here's an example, again, that data set, just a couple of setups outside. The same data set run through the decimation routine. I think this was maybe 5 or 10 centimeter point spacing just to test the setting, but you can see we've removed a lot of the data. And because of the nature of the way that we run the algorithm, we end up with, we don't move any data. That's the key point. We're only stripping data out and giving us kind of the best looking grid over that data set, but we're not actually moving any physical points, which I know some softwares do. Another feature on import is so you can set the range, the max distance and the minimum distance. So a lot of people I know, maybe they say, well, actually, I'm collecting 130 meters with the RTC360 on the medium res scan. I actually only need 25 because I'm doing internally, or I'm on a construction site and I don't want the building next to me. Well, now you can do that. You just click filter points by distance, and then you can choose that as the data comes in, and you end up with these sort of donut looking data sets if you use something like 5 and 10 meters like I've done in this example. One really cool thing for CloudWorx, we'll talk about this I suppose in a little bit more detail, but we can now open Reg 360 projects directly in AutoCAD. Now this requires you to have a publisher license, and it requires you to have Reg 360, and it requires you to have CloudWorx all running on the same machine. So this isn't something that is done remotely over a network. We're actually working specifically on a given machine. But what that means is we don't have to say export to an LGS to then open the LGS in CloudWorx, or create an RCP to open in AutoCAD. We can just directly open the Reg 360 project. So this video shows you that process. It has to be a finalized registration, so you can see we just go to the project type. Here's the finalized registration, but we don't have to publish anything. And we go back to our CloudWorx, we see all the projects, the finalized projects, we press OK, and that will open the data directly in CloudWorx. This is all of our CloudWorx products. So you might not have seen CloudWorx for SolidWorks before, but yeah, the data is now open and ready to start working with in that application. So hopefully you can make use of that. Again, just remember the caveats of it being on the same machine. You require a publisher license, your Reg 360 license, and your CloudWorx license. Okay, so that's good to know. In terms of BLK2GO import, the BLK2GO has been hugely successful. So we're all really happy with how the BLK2GO is being accepted into the marketplace. We have companies who have bought multiple units. We've got companies coming back to us buying more units. There seems to be a real sort of, not necessarily niche, but there seems to be a really good use case in the construction documentation space. But what you're finding is that people don't need all of the data all of the time. Actually, if you're doing floor planning, you don't need the highest density point cloud, but the speed at which you collect the data with the BLK2GO lends itself very nicely to that application. So what we've done, I suppose similar to what we've done with the decimation routines on the export side with Reg 360, but this is now done at the import stage. So we actually choose, you can either have your standard BLK2GO file, or you can have high density or low density reduction. I think it works out to about 4 centimeters and 2 centimeters sort of decimation on the voxel that we use. Again, we're not moving points, we're just finding the best points within the data set. But then you kind of move away from this kind of Monet-esque sort of looking point cloud if you just have no filters, and what you end up with is a much cleaner looking point cloud. And again, the point cloud on the right hand side here, even though it's low density, if you cut a slice through that, you're quite happily going to be able to create a floor plan, do floor areas, maybe build a very basic LOD 200 or 300 BIM from that as well. So I think a lot of people will find this really, really useful. This has gone down really well so far. I posted about this on LinkedIn about maybe a month ago now when we first announced the new releases, and merge projects. So this allows you to merge any number of projects into one project. So previously it was quite hard to bring two sets of data together. You'd either have to bring in two sets of raw data, or you'd have to export from a project and bring in maybe the E57s or something. It just wasn't easy. So now we just go into our projects and storage dialogues within Reg 360, choose the merge option, and we can just keep merging projects together. But you can only merge two at any one time. So you can just merge two and then just keep building on that. Obviously bearing in mind the limits that we talked about regarding the 2000 setups, but it's certainly a step in the right direction for people who want to bring either multi-days or multi-phases together into one project. So I love that. This is also really good, the repair tool. Now we can actually, if we find an issue with a project, we can actually click on it and specify repair, but this will actually be done automatically at every publishing event as well. So if you go to publish an LGS file, it will run this repair functionality in the background, and it's very quick, but it will identify if there's any corrupt setups or anything that needs to be removed before you publish. So rather than getting an error message that you don't quite understand, we'll flag that at the repair stage to make sure you can fix it before moving forwards. Okay, so now I'd like to move into talking about TruView. Now I'm just going to check the time. Good, we're on time, I think. TruView. This is where things change or have changed slightly. Now we're not going to go too much into detail today regarding Cyclone Enterprise, but we will talk about TruView and how that fits into the bigger picture. So we now have this TruView family. So this is about your reality capture anywhere, anytime, any device. So what we have is our desktop implementation of TruView, which replaces Jetstream Viewer, which some of you may have used. So just to highlight that, Jetstream Viewer is no longer. And then we have TruView Live, which is reading data from Cyclone Enterprise, and that is a web-based viewer. So that allows you to connect directly to Cyclone Enterprise, see the point clouds, the 3D models, the geotags, the assets, all through a browser. So effectively, on the left-hand side, so this is TruView. It's a Windows-based application. Again, it's a replacement, a rebrand, and a redesign of Jetstream Viewer. There is an install version, and there's also a non-install version for people who've got maybe IT hurdles. Again, it's a nice touch-friendly user interface, which is duplicated across both TruView and TruView Live, and it allows you to open loads of different projects, and it allows you to add and modify and delete 3D models. Now, TruView Live, which is the browser-based user interface, again, designed to be touch-friendly, optimized to use on smaller and bigger devices, fully integrated with Cyclone Enterprise, so it only loads data from Cyclone Enterprise. So this is our new enterprise project storage solution, your central source of truth for your data sets. So you publish data to Cyclone Enterprise, and you have user logins, and you can basically designate who can see that data, and you would access that information. One way to access the information would be through TruView Live. And you can modify and delete 3D models. At the minute, there's no ability to drag and drop, say, an IFC or an OBJ into TruView Live, but we will add that support in a future release as well. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these because there's a lot of them, but there's a lot of stuff that we have done with TruView to improve it and to improve the experience. Everything, like I said, I've mentioned touch-friendly interface. It's nice and easy to navigate through the projects. We've got new visibility panels, so you can very quickly turn on and off point clouds. You can turn off imagery, 3D models individually now. So if you've got 10 IFC files, rather than just turn them on or off, you can actually turn them off individually. So there's all sorts of stuff that we've done within TruView. So we're going to talk now specifically about the desktop implementation, but much of what you will see here will look identical if you were to open this up within a browser. Using TruView Live. So this is TruView. You can see we've just got a very small plant data set. On the left-hand side is where you have all your navigation tools. Plus you have, you can set your visibility if you've got embedded UCSs or limit boxes. You can do full measurement, so you've got the ability to measure angles and areas and distance. If you are working locally, so if you've got this as a TruView desktop setup, then you can resave an LGS file. So if you've done some amendments, you've added some models, you have maybe added some geotags or bits and pieces, then you can resave that LGS file and redistribute that. Of course, we've got the ability to capture as well, so we've actually improved the video buffer, so you can just go into fly-through mode and do a nice quick screen capture. And then we've also got this plugin manager. Now, the plugin manager currently is for Rhythm, and Rhythm powered by Jetstream. So this is a plugin that allows you to do floor flatness analysis in the field, mainly aimed at kind of the concrete market. But yeah, this plugin manager is there, and it exists for other plugins which may well come along in the future to sit inside TruView. You've also got your settings tab. You've got server connections, so you can save all your different server connections. So if you connect to Cyclone Enterprise, a Jetstream Enterprise server, maybe they're in remote locations, you can have those all saved. And then on the right-hand side, I said we've got this new visibility panel. So you can turn on and off the point clouds, images, even setups or geotags. We can actually look at all the assets, all the geotags, any snapshots you've created. And of course, we have our assistant panel, so people can use it. You can follow the steps in the assistant to use this if you've never used TruView before. And then we've got the model editing tool. So if you double click on any model element directly within TruView, this little dialog will invoke, and it allows you to scale, move, rotate. You can delete it as well if you want to. At any point in time, if you hit delete on a model, it will come up and say, are you sure you want to delete as well? As I said, we've got the measurement capability as well, so angles and distances and areas, and you can turn them on and off at a global level as well. But that's just a small change. But this is quite a big change, I think. So this is very, very useful for those people who are already using, say, Cyclone Model, or if you're using the COE plugin. So there's what's called, so COE, sorry to reiterate, is Cyclone Object Exchange. So that means if you're working in AutoCAD or Bentley or Revit, you can actually take that geometry and you can convert it to a COE, which can be read back into Cyclone, or of course you can actually now put it in TruView as well. So we've got we've got OBJ support, IFC support, and now COE support within TruView. So if you've got let's say you've got a refinery which you've modeled using Cyclone Model, you could then embed that COE file from Cyclone Model directly within your TruView if you wanted to, and share the point cloud, the 3D model, the imagery, everything, the assets, all in one cohesive project. Another little feature, which almost a throwaway feature, but is the ability to change the brightness of those models, so you can just kind of make them hide or pop depending. That's completely dynamic. Now, another thing that we've done just to kind of make the experience more slick is improve the navigation within TruView as well. So when you double click on one of these little setup positions, you can now see it's much smoother. And this works even better when you've got positions that are closer together, but you can see that this gives a much nicer navigation feel through your TruView data set, just to try and, I suppose, make it easier for non-technical users to become comfortable with it. So if they're used to looking at panoramas on house viewing websites and stuff, or real estate websites, they've got much more comfort in that. Okay. So now on to CloudWorx 2021. The first major update that I want to talk about is support for Cyclone Enterprise. So as you know, hopefully you know, Cyclone Enterprise is not actually formally released yet. So this is just preparing or paving the way for the release. But what it means is you can go into CloudWorx and click into the menu. I'll show the video. We can go into the menu and open a project. So I'm just going to, first you can manage the connections. So you can see you've got Cyclone Enterprise and Jetstream Enterprise in there. Then we click on the Cyclone Enterprise tab and you put in your username and password to access Cyclone Enterprise. So this could be hosted on an internal network, or it could be hosted on AWS, for example. And you see then all the projects which you have been granted by the system administrator. And then you open the data. So that data is streaming directly from Cyclone Enterprise into CloudWorx. And you can then start working with that data, slicing it, sectioning it, doing whatever you needed to. It has to be seen to be believed, trust me, because even running across AWS is incredibly slick. But obviously, bear in mind that you've got to have the right user permissions at the project level to see that data. As I said before, I'm not going to reiterate, but the connection to Reg 360, hopefully that's useful to people. But I think the next thing I'm going to show is going to be really useful to people. And that is the ability to open multiple point clouds within the same project within CloudWorx. So I don't know whether you guys have tested this or played with this, but here's the table to effectively show you which projects you can open with which. And there's a really nice video to show that. So for example, you can bring in 2 LGS files, you can bring in an LGS and a Cyclone Enterprise project. I can see big use cases for this. I know a lot of people say, oh, I just want to bring in that additional portion rather than have to, say, republish a whole data set or close one CloudWorx project and open a new CloudWorx project just to work on a specific area. So I think that a lot of people will gain an awful lot from that update. So this video shows that functionality now. So firstly, you say, I want to open up my LGS file, and it will bring that in, and that becomes the reference point cloud essentially. So what you should also remember is that you cannot move these point clouds together. You know, they have to be either in the same coordinate system. There's no alignment function within CloudWorx. So effectively, what you're seeing here is the 2 point clouds, and they've just been brought in, and you can start working with them. So hopefully, a lot of you will benefit from that within CloudWorx. Okay, then we have our updates for TruSpace. Now, this is within our CloudWorx Pro products. So effectively, and some products don't have a CloudWorx basic function, but effectively TruSpace allows you to navigate around in this separate window and see the point cloud information, the setups, the panoramic imagery, even geotags within TruSpace. But what we've done now is we've got full 3D navigation within the TruSpace as well, not just position to position. So what you can see here, I'm just going to open a project and load it from Cyclone Enterprise this time again. Okay, and once we've loaded that data set, so this is the one that we saw earlier on with the TruView example, but now you can see we have our TruSpace, and ordinarily in the previous version you were locked and fixed to the scan positions, but you can see the background is dynamically updating. But what we can now do is actually move away from that location as well if we wanted, so we can see that in full 3D. We can also, this is what we're going to do now, we're moving in full 3D, and you can see the image in the background, the interface in the background within AutoCAD is updating accordingly. What we can also do is actually sync up, we can sync up geotags, so we can now actually create and edit geotags directly within TruSpace. Now, in this instance, what's happening is we're reading data from Cyclone Enterprise. So when we update the geotags, you can see here we're going to create a new geotag or move it, edit it, delete it. This will actually be synced back to the Cyclone Enterprise server. So that means you could have someone remotely sitting either in another country or another office, whatever, actually embedding geotags directly within TruSpace, and they would then see them updated in Cyclone Enterprise. And you can see here now, this is now opening up that same data set from TruView Live, and you can see the geotag that we just added with the little hello from CloudWorx. So I think that as a system, the way that it works and the way that it all communicates means it's much, much easier for other people to now add in geotags. Yes, we can add geotags in the field. Yes, we can do it in Cyclone Field 360. We can edit them in Reg 360, but now we've got an additional point of control here, and obviously that will sync back into Cyclone Enterprise. Now, we can also specify whether a user has the capability to write back to Cyclone Enterprise based on their user permissions as well. So, you might not want someone messing with that information, but that is all part of the granularity of the user setup within Cyclone Enterprise. Now, this next slide, I'm not really going to, again, go into too much detail. There was almost too much to fit in regarding the CloudWorx for Revit release. There's just so much stuff that has been added in this last release on top of what we did in the 2020 release. But key here for me are the HVAC duct fitter, the conduit fitter, and the floor and roof fitter. They're all things that have been asked for time and time again. You've also got the set background color, something that I didn't really think a lot of people are interested in. But when you've come from primarily a CAD background to move to Revit, sometimes the white is a little bit off-putting, and sometimes it can also hinder the point cloud visualization, in my personal opinion. So yeah, you can set the background color. Plus, we've now got refinements of the cloud and model alignment tools. Now, I don't know whether many of you know this or use it, but obviously you need to bring your point cloud and your 3D model together, or potentially you do. So now we've got tools to move it, align it. We've refined those, but we've now got an auto align and a manual align functionality. There's also improvements to the way that we interface with RCP files. So hopefully you know that if you've got an RCP file, you can also use CloudWorx, and you can use all the tools in CloudWorx on that RCP file. Plus, we've updated the functionality within Clash Manager to add element IDs as well. But I would suggest if you're interested in CloudWorx for Revit, then I would have a demo, and there's plenty of video material out there which is really good at guiding you through what we've done. There was one recently by my colleague out in Asia called Haris, and he did an update on all these new features. So if you search in YouTube for CloudWorx for Revit 2021, you should be able to find his content. But yeah, otherwise, really nice release. So loads of stuff happening in CloudWorx for Revit. Now, this is one of my bonus topics. I'm not going to go too much into detail here because I'm hosting a webinar around the time of release with the product manager. So I don't know whether you've heard about Cyclone 3DR Touch, but effectively we've created a new touch mode for Cyclone 3DR, which allows you to get real-time results in the field using a Windows-based tablet. So we not only can you get near real-time results, pretty much real-time results, bringing the scan data in from the field. It's very much wizard-based, so you can just about see on the interface. You'll see on the next slide. It looks almost identical to the 4 steps that you would take through, say, a Cyclone Register 360 project, for example. But yeah, it allows you to obviously use the point cloud. If you've got a georeference point cloud, then you can use that. Maybe if you collected the data with what we call FieldWorks and a ScanStation P series, maybe you're georeferencing all the data and you're actually using that within 3DR Touch mode. But for me, it's really exciting. What it allows us to do is take a point cloud and take an IFC model or any kind of CAD file and do the inspection and analysis and create a report in the field live. So this is just a teaser, because what we're going to do in the webinar on April 21st is actually give you 4 distinct use cases and projects where we're going to go through everything from a BIM analysis of a building, lift shaft analysis, floor flatness analysis, looking at how you would do this in the field with Cyclone 3DR Touch. But the key for me is obviously the reporting. So this video here from Yannick, I've cut this in half. I haven't showed the initial stage because we have a whole load of tools that allow you to align the point cloud and the 3D model if they are not already. So using the alignment functionality within Cyclone 3DR, and what you can see now is obviously the deviation report, and you can change the colorization for the heat map accordingly directly within 3DR if you want to. And then you can create the report directly from there. You can also add in tags, much like you can with Cyclone Field 360, for example, and all of that will be embedded in the project. But you can see again from this video how easy it is to just start building up that information and adding in the measurement information. So all of this again is touch, and it's been optimized for touch. And you can see across the top, as I said, load the data, prepare it, inspect it, and deliver. So we're now at the deliver stage, and we're creating our 3D or 2D PDF report that we can share with our customers. There you go. So there's the report. So it's all done in the field. So you can imagine how much time that could potentially save you by doing that directly away from the office. And it might be because you might not need to do the whole job. It might be a room of a project or the floor of a whole building, which is where I think it will have real benefits. The next one, now this isn't going to be interesting for everyone, but it is exciting. And I'm sure you've seen the information, but this is the integration with Boston Dynamics Spot robot. So what I'm going to do while I'm talking is just let this video run. Again, you may have seen this on social, so apologies, but what you can see here is we've actually custom designed a bracket for the RTC360. That's just to protect it from knocks or bangs. It's perfectly aligned so that it doesn't interfere with the Viz cameras of the RTC360, but we have directly integrated the RTC360 API into the UIVUX Connect platform for Boston Dynamics Spot. So what that means is you can set specified paths for scanning, which means you can do repeated scans at the same location, because obviously Spot will follow the path and get back to the same location. So for automated construction documentation, areas of high risk where you need to use this remotely, I think this is going to be a really interesting collaboration, and we've already seen a lot of testing going on. Obviously beta testing, but now it's out in the wild. But I think what we've done is very, very unique in terms of the bracket and the integration and the way that we've deployed the RTC360 API directly into the device. We had a demo with a customer last week who I can't name because of NDAs, and they were so excited to use this, and they just said that it was the smoothest implementation of any kind of sensor that they'd seen into Spot, which they already own. But yeah, it's an exciting time. So we will release more information. Obviously, that you can now buy that. There's a single article number for the brackets, any cabling that's needed, and the software integration. Obviously, we don't sell Spot. That's up to you if you're interested. But yeah, I think it's a good step in the right direction. So we'll share more, and obviously you'll probably see more case studies on the internet over the coming months. So that is the RTC360 and Spot. Okay, so in summary, we've had the hardware and firmware updates, and I did say there's going to be a lot of information in a very short space of time. So I think that's probably the fastest I've ever delivered 90 slides of information. So you will get the recording afterwards. So by all means, review the recording. You can look at that in your own time. But essentially, the hardware and firmware updates. So I suppose the key ones really were the integration of the P series into Field 360. And then plus all those really cool version 4 updates for the RTC360. So smaller file sizes, smaller images, and the adaptive resolution as well. Cyclone Field 360 update. So I think it was the measuring capability, the target tagging function, and multitasking. Obviously BLK2GO Live. We talked about the Android version and the quick start guide built into the app. Reg 360. As I said, is kind of the meat of the presentation today, and so you can see we've just put so much effort and energy into getting everything that we want into Reg 360 and turning it into this really, really fantastic product. And please, if you've got any feedback, do get in touch. I spend a lot of time working with the product management team, feeding back requests from the European region. So if you've got something specific that is still missing or that you want, then drop me a line and we can talk about how we can get that information to the guys. TruView, this again, just trying to be real crystal clear. We have TruView and we have TruView Live. TruView is the desktop implementation with an install and a no install version. TruView Live is the web-based version which reads data from Cyclone Enterprise. CloudWorx, so I won't reiterate because we've just gone through that, but lots of changes to CloudWorx. One of the key ones, the ability to interact much more fluidly with the TruSpace functionality. And then Cyclone 3DR Touch and obviously RTC360 plus Spot. So Cyclone 3DR Touch, there is a webinar. We've got a huge number of people registered for that already. Thank you if you already have. That is going to be really good. I like to think, and you will actually see my face on that one. I might have finally had a post-pandemic haircut, but yeah, the reason for me not being on video today was primarily because I wanted the information to speak and not to have to worry about seeing my face on the session. But yeah, please look out for that. And if you look on the Leica Geosystems website, we've got a laser scanning webinar hub. We will also probably share the information as part of an update after this session as well. Then please attend and you'll learn much more about Cyclone 3DR Touch. So in terms of contacting us or contacting me directly, you can email me if you want to. I'm quite open about talking with people. If you're not from my region, I'll happily talk to you. I might have to push you back to someone else in another region to take it up. In particular, I can't answer queries on costs. And like I said, this session is not about talking about money, it's talking about telling you the updates and giving you the information. You can message me, I'm on WhatsApp if you want to find me on WhatsApp. Obviously you can go to the Leica Geosystems website, you can easily go to the reality capture pages, scanning and see all the software information there. And of course, social media. I run different pages across different social media under the guise Reality Capture Guy. So please just look out for information. It's all sadly my inner geek comes out with my Reality Capture Guy content, but the feedback has been has been good. You know, people like this information and they like getting it from someone who's very, very close to, you know, the teams who provide the content. So yeah, I'll keep sharing information through all these channels and look forward to connecting you on there. So I think, as I said, that's probably the fastest I've ever delivered a presentation of 93 slides we've covered today. I just want to say thank you very much for attending.